There's a pressure on Congress in particular to allow Jensen Huang and Nvidia to have greater access to some of these so-called adversaries. What are you hearing?
Well, what we're hearing is that the White House would like Congress to hold off on legislation that would force Nvidia to put American customers first ahead of adversarial nations like China. And of course, Nvidia is proscribed from selling to China right now by U.S. export controls and even by Beijing rejecting those H20 chips that we've talked about that have won American authorization to be sold inside China. Nvidia has been looking for permission to do more, and that includes selling a deprecated version of its market-leading Blackwell chip to China. Jensen Huang sees being able to compete in China as key to being able to compete around the world. But this measure is seen as really putting the handcuffs on Nvidia and on AMD as well. And both companies have moved against this. The bill is called the GAIN Act. It would be attached to a piece of legislation that's must pass. It governs defense policy, and it has bipartisan support. But now the White House is weighing in and seeking to get it pulled from the legislation. And it's unclear what would emerge in its place, because right now, Carol, there really is no uniform code governing export controls, especially as applied to China. And that's because if we go back all the way to the beginning of the year, and it seems so long ago, the Biden administration had tried to impose this AI diffusion rule, this framework that would prevent tech from leaking from allies like Saudi Arabia, like the UAE, to China. And we don't really have anything here yet in place in Washington. So you see the China hawks on Capitol Hill and even inside the administration grasping for an alternative. And this bill, which the White House is now trying to head off, is at least an attempt at that.
Shep, last night was a little bit an issue of timing and chronology. So during the call, the analyst call, the Commerce Department put out a statement confirming that Nvidia is now allowed to export Blackwell to the Gulf states. Is that just kind of rubber stamping something we knew was coming?
We had widely expected this approval to come through, but it does take some time to work its way through the guts of the bureaucracy. But there is also a hurdle to overcome, and that is the concerns, as we just discussed, that the technology does risk leaking to adversarial nations, especially China. And that is because both the Saudis and the Emiratis have had longstanding business ties with China. And China's Huawei Technologies has a footprint in each of those two nations. And the concern is that the proximity of Huawei to American technology in a data center creates a risk of some sort of leakage, either through software or something else. And that is something that the U.S. government was really trying to seek assurances on. We don't have details on what was required of the Emiratis and include also of the companies. And you did your best in asking Jensen for specifics on that. But he really dug in on the whole broader question of diversion. And that is something that the company has been sensitive about. They have insisted that their Know Your Customer programs have done enough to prevent diversion. And yet that hasn't assuaged all the concerns of China hawks here in Washington that advanced American technology could eventually leak back to China and somehow support its military and intelligence bureaucracies.